The Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be the new main console in 2025, and this has got so many Nintendo fans super excited for the release of this console. Specifically because reason being, I feel like this console could potentially significantly, so many different words, affect Splatoon in so many different ways. Some of you guys may know this, but there's something that's actually been affecting all of us playing Splatoon for the last 8 years. And in this video, I'm going to explain everything for how I feel like this Nintendo Switch 2 can fix the Splatoon series. So, just so you guys know, every person who's played Splatoon has not currently reached their full potential, because for the last 8 years, from Splatoon 2 up until Splatoon 3, we have been dealing with this thing called input lag. Input lag, or input latency, is basically the time it takes for a button input from your controller to actually show up onto the screen. It can be as simple as me pressing the jump button on my controller and just waiting for that jump input to actually pop up or correspond to what I've just done to the controller as well. It's very important just in gaming in general, because you typically want a very low input response time. This makes it so that games don't feel as clunky or slow when it comes to just generally playing, because if you have a game that has a super high input response time, then it feels like you don't have full control over the character or over the thing that you're doing within the game. Why is this so important, or maybe more important for a game like Splatoon? If you've played Splatoon, which you probably have if you're watching my channel, you would understand how fast-paced of a game Splatoon can be when it comes to engaging an enemy, trying to track that certain enemy, trying to paint the floor, trying to, do all kinds of different movements and all that type of stuff. All of this stuff really matters, and preferably for a game like Splatoon, or like basically any competitive shooter, to have a very quick input response time. Another reason is because when using motion controls, every single frame, there is one motion input, and as you know, Splatoon 3 runs at 60 FPS. So during those 60 frames, there's always at least one motion input throughout the entirety of that. It's quite literally the same as using a mouse on your computer. You want that experience of that control of your mouse to be as one-to-one as possible. Otherwise, it's just not going to feel natural. Now, I've explained input latency hopefully clear enough so you guys can all understand what I'm talking about. Now, how much input latency is in Splatoon 3 right now? In tests conducted a few years ago by a guy called Alan P, Splatoon 3 approximately has around 90 to 102 milliseconds of input delay. This is roughly about 6 frames of input lag. For many, the number might not seem like a lot, but trust me, that is a huge delay between your button input to actually show up on your screen. Now, was this always a thing during the Splatoon series or franchise, however you want to call it? No, of course not, because in Splatoon 1, and doing that same test as well, Splatoon 1 approximately has about 50 milliseconds of delay, which basically means Splatoon 1 is twice as responsive in comparison to Splatoon 3. This is a slowed down example just to show you the input lag when I move my controller up and move my controller left and right when playing on Splatoon 3. You can see that there's a slight delay before the input actually goes through, and it is quite an annoyance, honestly, because this is something I've been feeling for a while. And here we have a example with Splatoon 1, same thing. I'm holding the gamepad in hand and I'm doing the exact same thing. And you can kind of notice when it's slowed down that the input when I move my controller is usually tracked much quicker than how Splatoon 3 is. So this is basically what the problem is, the main problem, and it makes it so much harder to do anything in Splatoon 3 compared to Splatoon 1, and of course other games on the Nintendo Switch. Now, when checking the slowed down comparison, you would have noticed that when I'm moving my controller, I would move the controller and there'll be a slight delay until the actual input would actually show up onto the screen. But when you see it with Splatoon 1, there's almost like, it's almost seamless. Like I move it up and my crosshair moves exactly where it's supposed to be. You've probably heard me yap about this a whole bunch with Splatoon 1 because like I've said, it is twice as responsive in comparison to Splatoon 2 and 3. Every single time I come back to this game, it just feels like a huge breath of fresh air. And it's the first thing that I always notice when coming back to Splatoon 1. But when I go play Splatoon 2 or 3, the first thing I notice is just, man, the amount of lag that comes with just playing the game. It feels like a very clunky mess. While be it is a very fun game to play, but I'm just saying that it would be an even more fun game to play if the game felt better. Now, why have Splatoon 2 and 3 felt like such a clunky mess? Is it perhaps the gamepad being a bigger and stronger controller than compared to a Nintendo Switch Pro controller being the issue or something? Now, while technically the Wii U gamepad can connect a little bit better because it's a wireless connecting using 2.4 gigahertz compared to a Bluetooth controller, just like the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which is sometimes or most cases is a little bit slower, it's not entirely the issue, because if you were to connect your Switch Pro controller to your PC right now, the input latency is nowhere near how it is on when you connect it to your Nintendo Switch. It makes no sense, but the Switch Pro controller can connect fairly well via Bluetooth onto your PC right now. To get an even faster connection, preferably you would want to use a USB Type-C cable and connect it like directly into your PC to get the best connection as possible. If I'm not mistaken, it's roughly between 5 milliseconds and 60 milliseconds, which is just unheard of on the Nintendo Switch. So while saying that, why don't I just wire up my Nintendo Switch Pro controller directly into my Wii U? There's actually a setting for it, so let's give that a try. So if you didn't know, if you scroll down to controllers and sensors, you go here, you go to Pro Controller Wired Communication. Yeah, if I just type this, we'll plug my controller in, turn this on, and there we go. We've connected our Pro controller directly into our Nintendo Switch. Now, you would think this would be a no-brainer thing to do, but for whatever reason, the Nintendo Switch is special, because when you directly connect your Nintendo Switch Pro controller to your console, it actually gives you more input latency. You would think I'm crazy, but there's actually 1 frame extra input delay when connecting your controller directly. It's like the input is slightly smoother, but it feels more clunk. It just feels way more clunky. In a game where you're supposed to be fast, like, it just makes aiming just feel really, really rubber bandy. Like, I don't know if you can notice that the amount of rubber banding that's actually happening when I'm going back and forth. It's just like, this is what we've been dealing with for the last 8 years. And genuinely, it's honestly been one of the most disappointing things when it's come to playing Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. Like, I know a bunch of people who played like Splatoon 1 just don't really even want to play Splatoon 2 or 3 because this is such a problem and it feels like you can't be super one-to-one when playing Splatoon. And I completely understand, because when coming from a game like Splatoon 1, it's just felt like it's night and day. Like, you play Splatoon 1 and you just feel like you have full control over your crosshair, and there's no this rubber banding stuff. That feels like you have absolute precision on your crosshair. It makes things like playing a charger just more seamless. Like, it feels like I can actually play it and not feel like I'm fighting with my controller just to be able to aim really precisely. And generally, honestly, I've come to a point where I'm really sick of it. Like, I've loved this game, but I'm really, really sick of the constant reminder that every single time I'm going to load up on Splatoon 3 that I have to deal with input delay. Like, it's the first thing that I always think about whenever I boot up Splatoon 3, and it's just something that will not leave my mental. So, back onto the topic, the Nintendo Switch 2. How can the Nintendo Switch 2 potentially fix this specific issue? It's quite simple, actually. The Nintendo Switch is using extremely outdated hardware, like ancient hardware. Like, this hardware was being developed around in 2014 or 13, somewhere around there, and then released in 2015. This is how old this hardware is, and we're still playing on it. So the Nintendo Switch 2 having updated hardware just all around across the board should definitely help in terms of input latency. Another thing would be the Nintendo Switch 2 having another port directly on the console itself. Because as you know, there's a Type-C on top of the Nintendo Switch and one on the bottom. Of course, one to actually dock the Switch, but there's actually another one on top. This being a feature would allow users to actually directly connect their Nintendo Switch Pro controllers into the Nintendo Switch console itself, instead of actually connecting through to the dock, then the dock connecting to the Switch, and then, of course, wired connection being done that way. I believe this in particular could greatly help the input latency issue. Another thing would be the Pro controllers having a slightly higher pulling rate, up to 500 or even 1000, just like most modern gaming mice. This would help tremendously, making sure that every single button input is as perfect as possible and just responds quicker to the console itself. And lastly, which is at this point just a rumor, the Nintendo Switch 2 may possibly have a 120Hz screen. If it does, that means of course docking it is going to be at 120Hz. And just so you guys know, if you don't know, 120Hz means you have the potential to have 120 frames in the game. Currently, the Nintendo Switch only does 60. Of course, 120 is basically double. Basically, what that means is that input response time could be twice as responsive or even faster. Honestly, it's just a dream. And I just want this console to be the saving grace and hopefully fix the many issues that we've been dealing with for Splatoon 3 for the last 8 years. Because right now, I feel like it's such a struggle to play Splatoon, or even for like new people to play Splatoon, because the game just going into it doesn't feel as good. Generally, I feel like most people like trying to get into it like feel that it's a clunky mess and it doesn't feel as fluid, and just in turn, that doesn't make the game more fun to play. Like, of course, you could have lots of content on many different things, but in general, what is the most important thing for especially a multiplayer fast-paced shooter like Splatoon is that if the core gameplay actually feels good. That's what's going to get people to actually want to play more than just having a few weapons, just having a few balance patches, or all that type of stuff. Of course, important, but we play it for the gameplay. You know, we want to play games for the gameplay, and if the gameplay does not feel good, we're not going to play it. Like, it's a miracle that I've been on with Splatoon still for the last 8 years, because I have so much passion for the game and I love this game for what it is, and I just want the game to be fixed, all right? Because obviously your boy's been playing a lot of Splatoon 1 lately, because it just feels like a breath of fresh air coming back to it every single time, and it's just like, it makes me a little bit like disappointed, because I know how good Splatoon 2 and 3 could have felt if it felt just like how Splatoon 1 felt. And personally, in terms of like my own Splatoon potential, I feel like I've been locked in a time chamber because I've not been able to play the game that I love as well as I wanted to. And it's really, really annoying, because it feels like it's just like 8 years just gone like that, not being able to play this game how I've always wanted it to play it. So it's just like, I really hope the Nintendo Switch 2 fixes this issue, because it really is a bigger issue that I don't think enough people are really talking about. And dude, if Nintendo Switch 2 comes out and it has not been fixed, this is going to be terrible. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you know, let me know if you felt this as well and you share the same feelings. I feel like anyone who's played Splatoon 1 probably still shares this feeling, because it's just like, it's such a bummer, man. It's just such a bummer and it's just so disappointing. So yeah, man, I just hope the Switch 2 fixes it, and that's all I gotta say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like if you did enjoy, and of course subscribe to the channel, because of course your boy will be watching the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct when it comes out. So yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you guys in a future video.